Welcome to a new podcast episode from the Fireside Chat series, a highlight of the Deal Forum at the 2024 Leadership and Dealmaking Summit, which was held on September 24th at the prestigious New York Athletic Club in the heart of New York City. We are making our Fireside Chats available to those who couldn't be with us in person and for those who would like to experience and listen to it again. Hello there, M&A Advisor community. This is Roger Aguinaldo, and welcome back to the M&A Advisor podcast. Since 1998, the M&A Advisor's mission is to recognize achievements, provide thought leadership, and connect professionals in mergers and acquisitions for the purpose of improving your deal-making craft and accelerating your deal flow. We are so glad you're joining us for this insightful and inspiring podcast conversation curated for mergers and acquisitions professionals. Whether you're an aspiring deal maker, a seasoned professional, or just curious about the world of mergers and acquisitions, you'll find something valuable and relevant in our podcast. Our goal is to bring you the best insights, stories, and tips from the experts who've been there and done that, so you can learn from their successes and mistakes and take your deal making skills to the next level. But before we dive in today's episode, we have a small favor to ask you. If you enjoy listening to our podcast and find it useful, please consider following us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and subscribing to our M&A Alerts newsletter. You can find the links in the description below. This will help us reach more people like you and grow our community of M&A professionals. It will also let us know that you appreciate our work and want us to keep producing more quality content for you. Plus, you'll never miss an episode, and you'll always be in the loop with the latest trends in the M&A world to improve and accelerate your deal making. So please follow us. You are the reason we do what we do, and we couldn't do it without you. And now for today's podcast. Join us for an engaging fireside chat with our co-host, Leanna Haakons, and Ricardo Lacerda, the dynamic CEO and founding partner at BR Partners Banco de Investimento, S.A., with a wealth of experience as the former managing director and head of investment banking for Brazil and LATAM at Citi, and CEO of Goldman Sachs Brazil. Ricardo brings unparalleled insight into the world of cross-border deal-making. Tune in as they dive deep into the intricacies of international finance, all against the vibrant backdrop of beautiful, exciting Brazil. You won't want to miss the key takeaways that promise to inspire and inform your understanding of the global market M&A landscape.
I would like to welcome Ricardo Lacerda to the stage to talk about Brazil's rising influence in global M&A. So a quick clap for Mr. Lacerda, please. Thank you. Welcome all the way here from São Paulo, Brazil.
Exactly. No, thanks for having me. Long trip, but
it's worth
it's always good to be here. Yes.
These people are be very engaged. They're going to have a lot of questions for you about Brazil. I know it.
Okay. We'll try to answer.
It'll be no problem for you. So a little bit of background on Ricardo. He's the CEO and founding partner at BR Partners Banco de Investimento.
Yes, in Banco de Investimentos. Investment bank.
Investment banking. He asked me if there's anything that I don't know how to pronounce on here, and that was only one thing that was a tongue twister because it's another language. So BR Partners. And he's been doing that since November 2009. Prior to establishing BR Partners, he was the managing director and head of investment banking Brazil and head of Latin America at Citi from 2005 to 2009. He was also previously at Goldman Sachs as the CEO of Brazil and managing director of investment banking, and many other interesting areas of your career before that. His primary experience spans investment banking, mergers and acquisitions, corporate finance, capital markets, and business strategy. Additionally, his team will be recognized with 3 international M&A awards at tonight's gala. So congratulations on all of the accomplishments. You've had a very successful career so far.
So far, so good, but still a lot to do.
Well, welcome and thank you for joining me on this discussion. I'd love to learn more about your firm and your firm's mission to get us started. Why did you found BR Partners, and what are some of the distinctive services that your team offers?
Yeah, so I had a long career in investment banking. Initially, I was with Goldman Sachs here in New York for a few years, and then I was head of Goldman in Brazil. And then I moved to Citigroup, where I was head of Brazil and Latin America. And in 2009, after the financial crisis, I thought that there was an opportunity to create a new firm, a new independent investment bank in Brazil. We were initially focused on advisory. So since the beginning, we were a very strong player in financial advisor in Brazil, M&A, privatizations, debt restructurings, board services. But we also raised capital with wealthy Brazilian families, and we applied for a banking license with the Central Bank of Brazil. So today, we are a full-fledged financial institution that operates in investment banking, capital markets, treasury services, and cash management to clients, and also wealth management. So we're a little over 200 people. We also took the company public in Brazil in 2021. So it's been a very interesting run since we started in 2009.
And are all of your employees in Brazil?
All of our employees in Brazil. We have only one office in São Paulo, Brazil. Of course, we have a lot of international clients all over the world that we visit, that we interact to, people that, companies that have interests in Brazil that normally hire us because of our local expertise. But we are very cost conscious, so we have only one office in Brazil. We like to do a lot of partnerships with people, both in Brazil and around the world. So this conference has been great to meet people and people that are basically based all over the world and could have clients with interest in Brazil. And normally what we do is we work together with them to give the best service for the clients in the country.
And let's talk a little bit about your impressive career journey. So, what have been some of the things that have inspired you in the work that you've done in M&A? And what do you enjoy most about global deal making?
Look, I think what I enjoy, I have my entire career in banking, so I have not done anything else. In my family, people were normally lawyers or politicians in Brazil, but I felt that I wanted to do something more number related. So I went to school to study business, and I was in banking since the very beginning of my career, initially as a credit analyst with Chase Manhattan, and then moved into investment banking with Goldman City, large, very reputable global institutions until 2009. I decided to basically become an entrepreneur and try to do our own business. So we did it together with many other partners and raised capital with wealthy Brazilian families. So that has been very interesting. I'm very happy and honored by the different career experiences that I had. What I like the most is the dynamics of the business. Everything in M&A is very dynamic. It changes every day. So basically, there's no day like yesterday, and we have to go after clients. We have to look at the structure of the deals, things that are more complex. So I think the whole dynamic is something that is really very rewarding and exciting.
What do you find are some of the differences in the M&A landscape in Brazil versus in America? And what are some of the challenges or opportunities that you see within that for your business?
Yeah, I think that Brazil is a large economy. In a way, it has a lot of the characteristics that the U.S. has in terms of having many different companies in each of the sectors. So each sector, each industry that you look at, you have 5, 10, 15 companies that are listed. You have another 10, 15 companies that are private companies. So there's a lot of similarity in terms of the entrepreneurial environment. Which is something that is a very good for the M&A business. I think the main difference is that in Brazil we still have a lot of family-owned companies. So these are companies that were founded by individuals who started the company, grew the company. Sometimes they take it public, they bring private equity partners, but there is normally the figure of a controlling shareholder. So somebody, or either one person or one family, that calls the shots and makes the decisions. So it's not basically the same dynamic of capital markets when you do M&A. It takes a lot more convincing of individual people. So in a way, it's a combination of finance and psychology. Sometimes you have to spend a lot of time getting to know the characteristics of the family or the individuals that control the company, looking at their short-term, long-term objectives, and then getting ready to implement the deal. So that's I think the main difference that I see between the U.S. and Brazil.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, I imagine there's a lot of different cultural differences between the US and Brazil or other South American countries as well. What about in terms of the opportunities that that presents as someone who has a home in New York, you spend time here, you obviously live in Sao Paulo. What opportunity is that for your investment bank?
I think the opportunities are tremendous because Brazil is a large economy and there are a lot of players. So it's not like some of the other economies in Latin America or even some European countries where you have just very few players that control most of the sectors. In Brazil, you have a real breadth of industries and also a lot of different players in those industries. So that makes for a very good environment for us. And I think that's the main opportunity is really the entrepreneurial environment that Brazil has, which is something that started in late 90s and early 2000. In the past, Brazil was also a country with very few players in the economy, a lot of government participation. But then in the late 90s and beginning 2000, with deregulation, with some changes in the political environment and also opening of the economy, we got a lot of entrepreneurship, which is really, I would say, the best raw material for our business.
And are you often working on a lot of different cross-border transactions with American firms?
Yes, we're working a lot in cross-border deals. Since the inception of BR Partners in 2009, we had more than 50% of our revenues coming from global clients, either US clients or European clients, people that have a business in Brazil, but they prefer to hire someone with a very strong knowledge of the country and somebody who can, navigate the different environment, be it with family companies or also industry regulations, government relations. So we have been very, very successful in terms of being hired by global companies that have strong interest in Brazil. I would say a little bit from Asia, but mostly from Europe and the US.
Just a question, a show of hands in the room. Has anybody here worked on a transaction where a Brazilian company or a service provider in Brazil has been involved? Interesting. Cool. In terms of networking and relationships in the industry, how have you, as someone that has obviously worked with many large investment banks and now with your own investment bank, how have you cultivated strong relationships that have helped build your firm now?
I think in many different ways. I think that, I am alumni from Columbia Business School. I remain very close to them. So I have a lot of friends there. I have also people that I met throughout my career when I was with Goldman and Citigroup. But also we reach out to a lot of the individual firms in different countries where we see that there are clients that could have an interest in Brazil. When we reach out to them, and we love to do partnerships because it's really a smart way to go finding the client and then giving best execution to the client. So we have done deals, together with large banks, international banks, but also with a lot of M&A boutiques from all over the world.
And maybe just a few personal reflections on the advancements in your career throughout the years and now having 200 employees underneath you from a firm that you founded personally. What have been some of the greatest challenges that you've faced along the way?
I think there are many. I mean, I think that one of the most recurrent challenges that I faced is working with Brazil, which is an emerging country with a very volatile economy and with a lot of things that change in terms of macro environment. So I think that's a challenge that I face throughout my career when I was with global companies and then also with VR partners. I think the other, then the challenges in terms of being an executive of a global firm. I think it's really, to navigate that environment. And I think a lot of the international banks, they tend to get very excited when things are going well in Brazil and other emerging economies. And then they retract a lot when things are not so good. So that's one challenge that I faced a lot when I was an executive for those banks. In terms of BR Partners is a completely different challenge. I think, it's starting a company from zero. Basically, I started the company in 2009 with just one partner. We were basically borrowing an office space from a client because there was no office space available at the time. So it's really setting up everything, raising capital, then establishing the culture of the firm, attracting the talent. So it has been something really extremely challenging, but also very rewarding because, I think that there's nothing more rewarding and exciting than being able to build your own company and growing it and creating value to clients and to people that work with you.
How did you find that process of becoming an entrepreneur coming out of the big investment banking world and having to raise capital for your own firm? It's very difficult capital raising environment right now. What would your advice and experience be for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think that that was indeed one of the big challenges was to leave my executive career that I had for almost 20 years working for large firms and then starting everything from zero and having to raise capital. I've always been kind of a coward, so it was not a simple decision, but I think the financial crisis helped me put things in perspective, and I think it was a time that was really very interesting for new organizations to flourish. And my advice, just hang in there. I think if you have a business plan that makes sense, if you put the right people together, capital will follow. I think we're a company that have been very profitable since the beginning. We have 23% ROE over the past 15 years, and also 25% growth in terms of top line. And I think, with that, the opportunities will show. I think that it's just to, get the right people, the right business plan, and work hard. And I think money will follow because, there are even at times that are more difficult like now, there are people who can see the merits of good investments and put their money to work.
And what was it about during the GFC when you started your now business? What was it about that time that made you officially decide to go out on your own and start your own bank?
I think that there was, obviously a big turmoil that we all went through. And I think there was something that to me was clear that it would take time for global organizations to digest and to come back on their feet. And I think that created the environment. A lot of good people were available to join, and people that were excited. And also, I think the weight of the name of the global firms, I think, was weakened at the time. So I think it was easier for incoming players, with credibility, with independence, to basically start and be successful.
Mhm. Are there any questions from the audience about transactions in Brazil or working across border, career advancement? Yes.
In the United States, there's great transfer of wealth happening with these family-owned businesses, baby boomers retiring. Do you see the same kind of wave of family-owned companies, baby boomers, kind of individuals in that era who started these family-owned practices are not backed by any sponsors, whether they're venture capital or private equity, that are looking to sell? And is that going to be as big of an opportunity as it is here in the United States and Brazil?
It's a great.
I see that. That's a great question. I see exactly the same movement. Of course, in Brazil, throughout the past 3 decades, a lot of entrepreneurs, they got diluted by, bringing private equity funds to help them grow. Also by taking the company public, and then normally the company goes from one generation to a second generation with more people. A lot of the big groups are already in the third and fourth generation. So that all creates this environment that you're mentioning for a lot of transfer of wealth and a lot of opportunities. So obviously, the U.S. Is a much bigger and wealthier economy, but I see exactly the same opportunity in Brazil.
Do you see a stronger IPO market in Brazil right now than here?
No, right now, the IPO market is one part of the market that is not very strong, given what happened with interest rates here in the US and also in Brazil. Brazil is a country that intrinsically has very high interest rates because of the fiscal issues. So our base rates in Brazil are somewhere around 10.5% right now. So that makes it a little bit more difficult, and we see different cycles of IPOs. So it goes in windows. The last window was 2020, 2021, which is when we took BR Partners public. And since then, in the past couple of years, there were no IPOs. So I think we're waiting to see, now with easing cycles starting in the US, Brazil will probably be able to do the same next year. Perhaps we'll see the IPO market coming back.
Mm-hmm. And that was a great question too. We're going to go to Oliver as well, but because as you say, it's so much more of a family-based entrepreneurial environment that there must be a huge impending wave of opportunity for your firm and then others that are working in Brazil and have a presence there as well. Oliver?
Thanks. Oliver Zerbel from Smart Room. Ricardo, can you speak a little bit to the cultural differences in M&A deal making in Brazil? Early in my career, I visited with Lehman Brothers, a Latin America team, and they told me there were certain things to get deals done that were a little different down there than they are here. I don't know if you can speak to that a little bit.
Yes, I think nowadays we have fewer differences, but some of the challenges, for example, when I started my career and when I moved from Goldman Sachs, with Goldman Sachs from the US to Brazil, was initially when you approached an entrepreneur as an M&A banker, they always got scared, oh, I don't want to sell my company because selling the company was a sign of weakness and a sign of you're only going to sell your company if you are in financial trouble. So there was a big taboo that we had initially. But after that, there were so many very successful cases of entrepreneurs, building companies, selling the companies, and then building other businesses. And now I would say it's not a taboo anymore. I think a lot of the cultural differences are still related to the fact that we have a lot of family owners and individuals that control companies. So you need to look at the, personality. There are a lot of nuances in terms of what people want to do. And some people really, they just want to grow the company. They're very reluctant to sell. But gradually, I think that those differences are diminishing. I think there are also a lot of similarities. In Brazil, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, as I mentioned. So, people who start their companies in their 20s and 30s, and they're able to grow and build a business. And Brazil is also a very good and receptive culture for M&A. So it's easy to approach the clients. It's easy to show them ideas. And also, it's not a very hierarchical market. So you don't need to be, you don't need to have a big title to approach an entrepreneur or to work for a big global firm. I think if you're somebody that knows what you're doing and your idea makes sense, you will get a lot of traction. So in that sense, I think Brazil evolved very much like the US.
So we have a few minutes before our last speaker of the day. While they get ready, maybe one more question for Ricardo. Anyone? Roger.
Hey, Ricardo. Thanks for coming from your
Thanks for
luncheon.
having me,
I know
Roger.
you were coming across
Always a pleasure
meeting
to-
all these people. We had a podcast a couple weeks ago talking about the politics in Brazil. Talking about X being, I guess, shut down in Brazil, right? Twitter X, and then is this sort of, of things to come, or more of these, government kind of shut down things they may or may not agree with, may think they're not good for the overall good. Because I would think that if you're going to invest in Brazil, look in Brazil, you would want a more unregulated political environment than a regulated environment, and that sort of signals more regulation or more government intervention. So, can you speak to that? What's going on in Brazil?
Yeah, I think that a lot of you are probably following this situation in which a Supreme Court justice had banned X until they provide some information related to people that were posting fake news. Brazil is a democracy, so it has a lot of problems, a lot of issues in the country, but it's a true democracy where people can vote. The press is free, the Supreme Court works. I would say that, we had an event in Brazil in 2023 after the 2022 election, which was very similar to the January 6th event here in the US in 2021. So a group of people vandalized Congress and the Supreme Court. And, depending on how you want to look at it, some people say it was just a protest. Some people say it was an attempt of a coup. Anyone has their opinions, but there is an investigation going on, and this Supreme Court justice requested some information from X, which they refused to give, and then he took the extreme measure to ban X, which is actually something not very credible and even a little bit ridiculous, because anybody who has a VPN can still access X in Brazil. But I think it's in Brazil, we had these events were very similar to what happened in the US, but the Brazilian Supreme Court is more interventionist than the US Supreme Court. The US Supreme Court tends to leave politics to be solved by politicians and by voters. And in Brazil, they want to take a closer look at it. They're more interventionist. The Supreme Court in Brazil looks at literally tens of thousands of cases, because the Brazilian Constitution is very detailed. So you could virtually qualify any theme as a constitutional theme in Brazil. But what I would say is that this is something that creates a lot of headlines and a little bit of an embarrassment, in my view, for the country and for people who know how things work nowadays. But I don't think it's something that puts the business environment at risk or creates something that is unfriendly. I think that we have a lot of cases where global companies in Brazil were able to win court cases against local entrepreneurs, against the local governments. So I think the justice system, at the end, it works in Brazil, but it is a little bit too much on the side of intervention and trying to decide on virtually everything.
So you don't think it'll affect business investment in the short, medium, or long term?
No, I don't, because I think that the people who want to invest in Brazil, they do their homework and they are able to see through this mess. So obviously it doesn't help, right? I mean, anything that puts this kind of noise and Elon Musk tweeting things against this justice on a daily basis is something that doesn't help. But at the end, it's really something very political, people that are basically taking sides and doing that for political reasons. So the investors and the business people who really want to do business in the country, I think they're able to see through that.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. And as Roger mentioned, the M&A Advisor podcast channel is available. A lot of our keynote speakers that you've seen today have recently or will be in the near future between now and our gala and our event in November be a part of the podcast. So definitely subscribe to that to learn more about Ricardo and his business and some of our other speakers from today. Thank you so much for the conversation.
Thank you very much, Leanna. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, everybody.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and learned something new from it. If you have any questions or comments for us or any of our guests, please feel free to leave them in the podcast platform of your choice or send us an email at editor@maadvisor.com. We would love to hear from you and get your feedback. And if you haven't done so already, please follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and subscribe to our M&A Alerts newsletter at the links in the description or on our website at www.maadvisor.com. This will help you stay updated on the latest M&A interviews and trends and support our podcast to grow and reach more listeners like you. This is Roger Aguinaldo, the creator and founder of the M&A Advisor. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our M&A Advisor community. Until next time, stay safe and happy dealing.